pay membership fees to the European Union, even though they aren't a part of it, and thus don't get a say in its laws that they still have to follow. This
Okay.
arrangement is the European Economic Area, and it sounds like a terrible deal were it not for that asterisk which grants EEA, but not EU members, a pass on some areas of law, notably farming and fishing, something a country like, say, Iceland might care quite a lot about running themselves. Between the European Union and the European Economic Area, the continent looks mostly covered, with the notable exception of Switzerland, who remains neutral and fiercely independent, except
That's right. Yes, that's like the famous thing, right? Like Swiss are always neutral. Okay.
for her participation in the Schengen area. If you're from a country that keeps her borders extremely clean and or well patrolled, the Schengen area is a bit mind-blowing because it's an agreement between countries to take a meh approach to borders. In the Schengen area, international boundaries look like this. No border officers or passport checks of
That is wild. Yeah, because the border between Canada and the U.S. and the border between Mexico and the U.S., I've literally lived on the border, down in the border of New Mexico, the state, and the country of Mexico, right underneath it. And yeah, it is way guarded. It is like totally different than this.
any kind. You can walk from Lisbon to Tallinn without identification or the need to answer the question, business or pleasure. For Switzerland, being part of Schengen but not part of the European
Beautiful, by
Union
the way.
means that non-Swiss can check in any time they like, but they can never stay. This kumbaya approach to borders isn't appreciated by everyone in the EU, most loudly the United Kingdom and Ireland, who argue that islands are different. Thus, to get onto these fair isles, you'll need a passport and a good reason. Britannia's reluctance to get fully involved with the EU brings us to the next topic, money. The European Union has its own fancy currency, the euro, used by the majority but not all of the European Union members. This economic union is called the Eurozone, and to join, a country must first reach certain financial goals. And lying about reaching those goals is certainly not something anyone would do. Most of the non-Eurozone members, when they meet the goals, will ditch their local currency in favor of the euro, but 3 of them, Denmark, Sweden, and of course the United Kingdom, have asterisks attached to the euro section of the treaty, giving them a permanent opt-out. And weirdly, 4 tiny European countries, Andorra, San Marino, Monaco, and Vatican City, have an asterisk giving them the exact reverse, the right to print and use euros as their money despite not being in the European Union at all. So that's the big picture. There's the EU, which makes all the rules, the Eurozone.
A little bit much to dissect. I mean, it's good because in America, you know, the famous thing is we just kind of learn very broad topics about the world, and mostly you learn like tons and tons about the U.S., a little bit about Mexico and Canada. It's very like everything's about right here and not on a world spectrum, at least when I was in school. So this is kind of refreshing to learn this, although I'm not going to be an expert on it, of course, because this is a lot to take in, and of course there's more to it than just a few minutes of a YouTube video. This is pretty cool to learn.
Inside of it with a common currency, the European Economic Area outside of it where people can move freely, and the selective Schengen for countries that think borders just aren't worth the hassle. As you can see, there's some strange overlap with these borders, but we're not done talking about complications by a long shot. Once again, because empire. So Portugal and Spain have islands from their colonial days that they've never parted with. These are the Madeira and Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, and the Azores well into the Atlantic. Because these islands are Spanish and Portuguese, they're part of the European Union as well. Adding a few islands to the EU's borders isn't a big deal until you consider France, the queen of not letting go. She still holds on to a bunch of islands in the Caribbean, Reunion off the coast of Madagascar, and French Guiana in South America. As far as France is concerned, these are France too, which single-handedly extends the edge-to-edge distance of the European Union across a third of the Earth's circumference. Collectively, these bits of France, Spain, and Portugal are called the outermost regions, and they're...
So that's something interesting. So that means technically all these on the screen are part of the EU then? And if that's the case, that means the EU extends into South America, extends into the Caribbean, extends way out into islands out in the middle of the ocean off of Africa. Like, this is crazy.
The result of the simple answer to empire, just keep it. On the other hand, there's the United Kingdom, the master of maintaining complicated relationships with her quasi-former lands. And she's by no means alone.
Oh, wow. I'm not even going to dissect that. That is a lot. Wow. That's on like every corner of the map here.
In this on such an empire-happy continent. The Netherlands and Denmark and France, again, all have what the European Union calls overseas territories. They're not part of the European Union, instead they're a bottomless well of asterisks due to their complicated relationships with both the European Union and their associated countries, which makes it hard to say anything meaningful about them as a group, but in general, European Union law doesn't apply to these places, though in general, the people who live there are European Union citizens because because in general they have the citizenship of their associated country, so in general they can live anywhere in the EU they want, but in general other European Union citizens can't freely move to these territories.
Oh, so I'm sure these are blanket statements and come with a lot of different scenarios, but if someone is in London, right? They live in London and then they want to move to one of these islands way over here with the UK flag. Can they just do that then, or they can't do that, and vice versa? I guess that's the kind of questions I have. But then again, I know these are kind of open-ended questions.
Which makes
anyway.
these places a weird semi-permeable membrane of the European Union proper, and the final part we're going to talk about in detail, even though there are still many more one-off asterisks you might stumble upon, such as the Isle of Man or those Spanish cities in North Africa.
The Isle of Man, beautiful place, and I think most of you probably know they have a particularly really dangerous, really fast motorbike race.
Africa, or Gibraltar, who pretends to be part of southwest England sometimes, or that region in Greece where it's totally legal to ban women, or Saba and friends, who are part of the Netherlands and so should be part of the EU but aren't, or the Faroe Islands, upon which while citizens of Denmark live, they lose their EU citizenship, and
What?
on it goes. These asterisks almost never end, but this video must.
I had no idea about those. Well, there it is. That was like a handful, wasn't it? So I think this was really enjoyable. That's the European Union explained. I will reference one thing I saw right at the top. So I'll zoom in for you. It says this video is 7 years old. Here are some clarifications/changes for some new viewers. Number one, the UK has officially left the EU. Okay, that's what I said at the beginning. That is kind of relevant in the news in the last few years, and so yeah, that one I'm not surprised to see. Iceland, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, and Kosovo are currently not official candidates to join the EU. Okay. Turkey is a candidate country on paper, but there's no way that's happening anytime soon. All right. Latvia and Lithuania have entered the Eurozone. Montenegro and Kosovo have chosen to adopt the Euro unilaterally. So there you go. There are a couple more points. Now, I'm sure you guys might have some points or knowledge you would like to add. Please do so in the comments. But yeah, as I said, this is kind of scratching the surface. I get that it's a small video, but it's good for someone like me who just wasn't really taught this thoroughly. Whereas, some other countries might have learned this a lot repetitively throughout their life. And a lot of topics are just glazed over here, and, you don't get to hear about a lot unless you seek them out. So that's what I'm doing. In conclusion, guys, throw a thumbs up on there if you enjoyed it. And, of course, subscribe to be part of this amazing community. My name is Ian. You're watching IW Rocker. Until next time, y'all. I'll catch you later.